Sebastian Vettel must have a hell of a time figuring out what t-shirt to put on in the morning. The Formula One racer showed up in Montreal wearing a t-shirt bashing our energy sector here in Canada. But that's not the only t-shirt he wears. He also wears this other t-shirt that bears the logo of Aramco, evidently one of his sponsors. Aramco is the world's biggest oil company, responsible for 100 million tons of emissions every single year, almost twice as much as the entire nation of Portugal puts into the atmosphere. So it's not just t-shirts, it's also his helmet. His helmet bashes our energy sector and proposed pipelines, while also bearing that very same Aramco logo. Perhaps that helmet is a little too tight and it's constricting circulation to the part of the brain that detects hypocrisy, because that's what our friend Sebastian is. He is a high carbon hypocrite, not just in his t-shirts, but in his actions. He, of course, wore his virtue signaling t-shirt while he walking next to a bicycle. Sebastian, you don't race on a bicycle, you race on a fuel guzzling automobile, right? As part of Formula One, which concedes that it emits 250,000 tons of greenhouse gases every single year. That's the equivalent of 55,000 vehicles on normal roads on a yearly basis. But, you know, when it comes to this high carbon hypocrisy, we've, as Canadians, been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. Of course, we have a prime minister who is a high carbon hypocrite. He jet sets around the world while telling Canadians they have to pay more just to gas up their vehicles. He wants to phase out our energy sector by blocking pipelines like the Energy East pipeline, which would have taken our energy from the west to our eastern refineries. And now we have to import 130,000 barrels of overseas oil from places like, you guessed it, Saudi Arabia. So the money that we send them funds their dictatorship and their corporate profits. And furthermore, by blocking our energy production and exportation, Putin is able to dominate the European market, which he does to profit and pay for his war machine attacking Ukraine. So here's a better approach than the high carbon hypocrites. Why don't we continue to unleash our energy sector, reward Canadian companies that invest in green technology, like the Western Canadian ones who are burying the carbon back in the ground where it came from, the world-leading carbon capture and storage. Some companies report they are on the verge of or have even attained carbon negative status. That means they put more carbon back in the ground than they put into the air. These companies are respecting human rights, paying good wages to working class people, helping First Nations escape poverty. So I'm going to repeal the anti-energy laws to allow them to make us energy independent. I'm also going to let Newfoundland produce enough energy to fully replace the overseas oil we're importing in New Brunswick and in Eastern Canada. In other words, within 5 years, a Poilievre government will ban dictator oil from Canada altogether. That's how we protect the environment, take control of our energy future, and make our country energy independent. So ignore the high carbon hypocrites and their virtue signaling t-shirts and helmets, and let's take back control of our lives here in Canada.